I have. And I realized that a lot of the lessons you really don't speak about. So I'm going to go back to that tradition. I don't know if it's a tradition or not, but I knew I came up under it where every Sunday one of these lessons were read. And that's how we became very familiar with them. I think we need to go back to start doing that, at least some portion of it every Sunday we should read to keep ourselves very familiar with it. So some of you don't have this book. It has a few more lessons in it than others have, so I need to at least read from them to make people aware of them. But today I wanted to start that by reading from the Gospel. And it's called The Things Are Treasures from God. The things are treasures from God. The greatest treasure that we have from God, first, is the consciousness that we have. And then the time that we have to use that consciousness in our home. So we're here today by the blessings of the rock. How many talk about it? It says, you built the world's first boat and called it an ark. 10,000 years before Noah was born, and other nations copied that invention. And that's a tremendous statement. There was never a boat before we developed a boat. So that means that all the shores of the world we were from. We were the people of the oceans, shore, and the rivers. You built the first arbor, a shady place formed by trees, in a tabernacle, a tent, and called it Ethiopian wigwam. When we saw the earlier pictures of the Native Americans, the Aboriginal Americans, they said they lived in wigwams. We are the developers of wigwams. Now we've moved from two continents, from one eastern continent to a western continent, and you see the wigwam again. If you're not familiar with the wigwam of Asia, you get to think of the, what is it? Kublai Khan, what was he? He was a Mongolian. He lived in wigwam, skin-made tents. You built the first arbor, the shady place with trees, and tabernacle tent, and you called it an Ethiopian wigwam, a hut of poles covered with bark, mats, and skin, while the Mayas of Asia, who became the American Indian, were living underground. And the Eurasians, the Europeans, were living in trees and dabbing the hollow holes of Holyoke. Y'all really, do y'all understand what that dabbing the hole of Holyoke is? I'm not going to say what it is, but look it up when you get a chance. It's adult information. But it's quite alarming. I hadn't really paid attention to it until I read it again. Dabbing the holes of Holyokes.
Imagine that.
Yes.
What is it?
Something.
I shall share that with all adults. But we have a young lady today. Okay. You made the first brick to build a house, the first plate to eat from, the first stone jar for water and preserving food, and you made alabaster, the thinnest of glass, your servant. The pewter dish and the gold and silver cup were yours, while the other nations throughout the earth drank like animals. They put them out to the water. That's a tremendous distance in time from what you see history and what they talk about us. That at one time there was no cup, there was no plate, there was no fork, there was no spoon. So all the world today, except for those who still eat with their fingers, are eating from our plate. The pewter dish, the gold silver cup were yours, while the other nations throughout the earth drank water like animals. You smelted iron, melted ore, in order to get the metal out of it and make tools for the field, plows, for the farmers, and the wood axes and the saw to cut trees for use, and also utensils, cooking vessels for the kitchen, while the rest of the world, that is other nations, were using your discarded, given up and worn out system. We have it today. It's called barbecue or open fire cooking. Did you notice that the prophet used the word kitchen about ancient people? That means they had the fire inside. So they were cooking in a kitchen thousands and thousands of years ago. Said, Mr. Negro, you built huge monuments of stone upon stone and called them pyramids, the Houris, while the ignorant were building little altars and setting little pillars. Now, go back to this word, Negro. I said, why did the prophet use the word Negro when he knew we were not Negro? Because he wanted for you to identify who the Negro is. And the Negro is identified because Negro, Portuguese and Spanish, are people of black. So you would know one another by your blessing. Your blessing is your blackness. Mr. Negro, you were the world's first navigators. You went down to the sea in ships, hauling gold, silver, peacock, ostrich feathers, spices of all kinds. There they were, the world's first bakers. That means you were the first one to cook bread. I hadn't gone this deep into this, so I started reading it over and over again. I'm saying, wow, these are first on earth. You brought the use of tobacco and coffee and tea and distilling and chemistry were yours. You produced the first drinking in the world for pleasure's sake as well as homes. And you gave the world all their present day medicines. All their present day medicines. Who are you? You first people. What color are you? You were Negro, you were Negra, you were Negri, you were Negrito. All those were names describing us, not the country where we were from, because we were from every country. You get it? They called you Negro because you occupied it all already, so they didn't have to say you were from Babylonia, you were from Nigeria. They knew you were already occupied, but until you really study what's been said, you don't realize why they use the term Negro. Because the black people were the people. They were the educated people. And you discovered the art of writing. You were the first school teachers and taught the Greek as ABCs. Yes, you educated the Europeans by teaching the first Greek nation, and then the rest came running. So the Greeks were people of color, the first Greeks. We taught them, and then they talk about seeing the daughters of man. So how they conquered us was the same way that Columbus discovered. Because they are so loving and peaceful and generous, we can easily conquer them. We will give them our women. 300 years later, they come back and take your country. Amazing, isn't it? Do you see it on television today?
Yes.
Vikings.
Every commercial now, either a black man or a black woman with a white man or a white woman. They're starting to do because they have passed their date of extinction. What I mean by date of extinction means that there are more of them dying than are born. And they are way behind the Spanish Catholic and the Sudanese African. They do 8 to 1. For every one that died, they have 8 babies. Germans, Russians, English, Poles, all have none. They die faster than they are created. So they're in their extinction, and that's why you see this moving thing called melanin, because it is a life-preserving entity. Mr. Negro, your sons became the great masons. Yes, you were the first masons, master stone cutters, builders, and another son of yours wrote the Quran, and his name is Ibn Dibislad. Now, did you ever think about that? It said Muhammad discovered Islam for his people. But the person who actually wrote what he wanted to say wasn't his people. He was one of us. So he had, did you think he helped him?
Yeah, right there.
Quite a bit. Yeah. You think he chose the words to express what he was trying to say?
Yes. He was like it.
Yeah, all of them.
More than like all of it.
Yeah, you could be literate.
Yeah, he was illiterate. So we understand how you be illiterate.
He could,
Because he told you what he wanted and you designed it.
he could neither read nor write.
You know right. So Ibn is the whole book. The whole book is yours. He wrote it for Muhammad. Your sons became kings in Africa and Asia, and were heroes and warriors of renown, of fame. Your daughters were queens of Africa and Asia, and were the virgins who gave birth to all the prophets. Behold the families of the Negro, Ethiopian, Hud, Ad, Cush, Isis, Osiris, Takwaka, Tahi, Balkis, Hagar, Bathsheba, Hiram, Abraham, Ishmael, and Kedar. All those were the families. These weren't individuals. These were large tribal families. Behold, the families of the Negro. Ethiopia, all those are large families, like you call a city, Wellston. Well, these were like Wellston. These were cities of people. The Negro, I call you to witness. Why do you worship a man of sorrow, while the rest of the world worship heroes? Why do you honor Candace, fool Enoch, who neglected the business of state? And if you don't know who Enoch was, Candace was, this guy was told to go and have this important business meeting. And he was supposed to take this shortest route where everybody knew was the best way to go. And he didn't. He veered off and went back into this other country where all these springs and stuff, like trying to do some other business, and he messed up business of state. So he says, don't be like Candace's fool Enoch.
Yeah.
So when you read these names and you don't know who they are, stop and look up the history of it, and it will explain it for you. Did you know your wife of a son, Pushkin, teach Tolstoy his song? What is waif? Waif. W-A-I-F.
A smart child.
Young child.
Young child.
A wayward, homeless
Yeah.
child.
Yeah.
So, was the slave became the master because he codified their language. He gave an alphabet to their spoken language. They didn't have an alphabet. So, this one time, a wayward, homeless slave child became a premier person in their culture because he codified and developed their language.
That was the language of the Greeks.
No, the Russians.
Russian.
Pushkin. Why do you bear the cross? Why do you bear the cross alone and let the world go free? What are you doing on the Isles of Jamaica, waiting for your slave ship to come? Are those your children whom I see hanging from those trees?